Hello, everybody. Welcome back to AmericanCivilDebate.com. I'm here with Matt.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And we're back with my father.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we're going to talk about tonight, Matt.
Oh, we're talking about the military. That's what we're going with, and we'll go off with tangents in Vietnam, Korea, World War I, World War II, and how America treats their veterans today versus, how it was a long time ago.
All right. You two gentlemen start.
All right, sir. We will begin with you. How do you feel that America is treating their veterans today versus when you were growing up?
I think the veterans are getting treated a lot better today than they used to be, and it's because of a lot of different factors. But I think maybe the public is starting to realize, or the general population, is starting to realize that the veterans are the only reason that we can sit here and do what we're doing. That's the only reason we go to work. The only reason we have anything in our lives is because of the people who have sacrificed everything.
Can I have you pull the mic a little bit closer to you?
I'll certainly
All
do it.
right, that works. All right, so what I want to go off on is, so when I was growing up and about how we were talking earlier before we brought all the equipment back out today, is my father always told me is that no matter what veteran you see, especially Vietnam War veteran, is that you will always thank them for their service and sit there and have a conversation with them because of how badly they were treated when they came back from the war, because everyone hated the Vietnam War.
Absolutely, they hated it. Now, my father never served in WW2 because he had tuberculosis, so they turned him down. But he would have gone. He tried, couldn't go. Most of my other relatives were either in the Navy or the Army during WW2. I didn't have many that went to the Korean War because there was an age gap. But I can tell you I was drafted in 1965 and went through basic training. And when we left basic training, there's two things that stick out in my mind. Took a taxi to Houston. There's 6 of us in that taxi cab. 3 African Americans, 3 whites.
Hold on, you went to Houston from where?
From Fort Hood, Texas. I'm sorry.
So you were, hold on, you got drafted and then they sent you to Texas and then you went?
Well, at first we went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Fort Lost in the Woods?
To get Fort Leonard, huh?
Fort Lost in the Woods, that's what we call it nowadays.
It was a miserable hole in the wall. I left Atlanta, it was 74 degrees. We got to Fort Leonard Wood, it was 12 degrees. And we're standing out there in short sleeve shirts. And it took about 3 hours to get us processed. And during the meantime, we started at one end of this big field, pick up every rock you can see, stack it on the other end. And then you take the rocks, throw them back, and you pick them up again. And we did that until they got us processed in. Miserable time. But it taught you a lot. The military is different than regular life. You just adapt and do what you're told.
What I do want to say, and this is a moment that I will always remember for the rest of my life, is that when I told you and when I told Bo that I was going into the military, you told me that that is the proudest moment that you have ever been a part of for myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It was jaw-dropping to me that, somebody was ecstatic for me to go into the military and serve my country and do what I was going to do. And you both were a part of that to where, it made me want to be better. It made me want to do what I had set my mind to.
Well, to me, it's a great honor to serve your country. A lot of people, especially back in the 60s, because I was drafted in 1965, and I'll just tell you how we were treated. The Vietnam War was really getting going, okay? And we left Fort Hood, and 6 of us took a cab to Houston to fly back to wherever we were going. And there was three whites, and there was 3 African Americans. We were buddies.
I was your battle buddy.
Best of friends.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, anyway, when we got to Houston, the first thing I noticed is that we walked in, and the 3 African Americans said, "Y'all go ahead." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Y'all go ahead." And it took me a long time to figure out, and I'm still not sure whether they did not want to be seen with us as friends or they didn't want us to be seen with them as friends. But that was quickly overcome by the crowds in the airport throwing things at you, spitting at you, and calling you every name they could think of.
No, I don't understand that, and that's I feel like that's why when growing up, my father always told me, no matter what veteran you see, especially Vietnam, you will always thank them for their service because of what they went through, especially when they were leaving and when they were coming back. He told me that he was going into a gas station and there was a homeless Vietnam veteran sitting on the corner of a gas station and he was getting spit on by people. And my dad went up there and talked to him when he was 7 years old and made that veteran's day. Talked to him, just had a normal conversation with him. People weren't treating the Vietnam veterans and people who were going to Vietnam as humans. They were not. They were treating them as, as honestly, and I hate to say it, as like they were pieces of shit.
They were traitors. They were going to a situation where a very unpopular thing, and they were traitors, warmongers, and heathens. It was just a terrible thing. But we all got through it.
How do you feel about this, Bo? What do you think?
Well, I haven't been in the military, so I really can't say anything to it. I mean, I read about it in history class. I remember that. But I just think it was a senseless war. It wasn't like World War I, World War II, where you're fighting the evil Axis.
I think everybody contributed in World War I and World War II. The country was behind the troops. And it was a nationwide effort to fight the Japanese and fight the Germans because it's just the way it was. But in Vietnam and even Korea, it was not a nationwide situation. It was Vietnam was not even a war. It was a skirmish. They call it the Korean War, but here again, they did not have set designs on winning that war. They had it. They did not have it in Vietnam. It was just a skirmish, and there's so many things that went on in Vietnam. The search and destroy, totally useless. In my mind, you start at one end of that country, you go to the Cambodian border or wherever you want to go with it, and you beat your enemy. You don't go out and try to pacify them and not beat them. You just don't do that. It's a war. It's a war. It's a skirmish. It's a skirmish, and they treated it as a skirmish.
Now, would you say that the Vietnam War was more like a political gain?
At the time you're in, you don't understand all those things because we never got news when we were in training. But when you get back to the States and I got back in 1967, and when you get back and you see what happened at the Democratic National Convention and the riots and all that, yeah, it was totally political. There was no sense in 53,000 men dying in that stupid country.
Bo, do you have any questions you would like to ask us? Or just ask in general, military-wise or anything like that? Because I have some questions for your father that I would like to ask. But
go ahead.
All right. So I want to kind of go off on because growing up, World War I and World War II veterans were plentiful, correct?
Yes.
They were around, and I mean, it's very rare nowadays to see a World War I or a World War II veteran.
There are some World War II veterans left, but the thing about those two wars, they may have had the draft, but they didn't need the draft because everybody was volunteering to go because it was for the good of the world.
It was for the country, It was to make America America and what it is. Now, I want to ask you a question, and I want to ask both of you the same question. And this is what I strongly feel about. Now, any high school aged person, would you feel that America would benefit from any high school age person that is eligible once they graduate from high school to serve a minimum of 2 years in the military.
I personally think it would be the greatest thing in their life. It would teach them so many things that they are frankly not getting taught at home, but it would teach them discipline, teach them respect, and they would learn self-respect. And the country needs that. So, to me, it would be a great deal.
What about you, Bo? What do you think?
Well, like I said, I've never been in there, so I can't really speak to it.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think your life would be different if you went?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I mean,
I think it would, personally.
Well, I mean, personally. But I didn't go, so I'll never know.
Okay,
I'm 49. I'm 49 years old. I mean, I took the ASVAB when I was younger. I passed it. You know, when you're in my 1980s, when I was going in there, I was like, hey, I want to be a Navy SEAL. And then you start talking to people about certain things. And I'm kind of glad I didn't go, because I think that whole thing with Bush Sr.
You would have never made it.
Well, no. But you think about, like, you think about the first Iraqi war. Remember Desert Storm?
Desert Shield and then Desert Storm.
That was a useless war. We should have never been there, except for the
Kurds.
It was a war of revenge for what they did to us on 9/11.
Well, no. So Desert Shield.
Which one?
We're
was
talking about
in
Bush
the
Jr.,
90s.
Bush Senior.
Bush Senior
Bush Sr.
was in the 90s with
Yes.
Desert Shield.
Yes, he did, and he never finished, and that's what his son really set out to do.
Well, I mean,
but
But it
also
was
in
brought
the late
about
90s.
by 9/11.
Hold on. In the late 90s, Clinton cut down the military.
okay, but let's
Yes, he
just
did. Yes, he did.
let's look at it like this: World War I, World War II. Those were two necessary wars. Because if we'd have lost that, if the Allies would have lost that, we'd be looking at a totally different world, right?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I mean, and let's just think about, let's talk about the other wars that we've had. The one in Vietnam, like you said, that was
Before Vietnam was Korea.
Okay, Korea. That was a stupid war, was it not?
In my mind, I had an next door neighbor that served in Korea, got shot in the shoulder, and we talked. I was a young kid at the time, but we talked extensively about it, and he thought it was useless. I mean, he was a wounded veteran, but he thought it was useless, and
Okay, but
it accomplished absolutely nothing except killing Americans.
Okay, but then let's think about the Vietnam War.
Totally useless.
So what we were talking about earlier with the Vietnam War, it was a scorched earth policy for that war. And what I had mentioned to your father earlier was, Americans had dropped Agent Orange on themselves.
Yes, they did.
Because they were following the scorched earth policy. When you follow the scorched earth policy, you don't want anybody to return to that area. And it makes it easier to win a war that way. But we did not win the Vietnam War.
Okay, but
They did not politically, Matt. Come on, let's be real. They did not set out to win.
No, not at all.
Vietnam.
It was just a war to go to war to get people elected.
Absolutely, and it's a shame, like I say, that so many Americans had to die, get maimed over politicians' greed and I would say stupidity, but it's even deeper than that. I don't even know the words to describe it.
Okay, but let's think about this then. Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Same thing, Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, it was a pointless war. It was for religious It was for the religious rights and to gain oil. That's what it was for.
I'm not sure about the oil part of it, man. Now, there've been a lot of discussions about it, but nobody has proved it was about the oil.
Well,
Okay.
I want to say this: if you have the ability to overcome a country and they are the highest producing oil country in the world, what would you do?
I don't think I would attack them. To me, the only reason we went to war in the Desert Storm was retaliation for 9/11. Now, I may be very naive.
No,
that's not
Desert Shield. Desert Shield was
I don't know
before.
about Desert Shield.
So
Okay.
that's what I want to say.
So,
It was a
okay.
religious war to help because the Civil War was going on in that country. We
Okay.
were an ally
You're
with the
right.
other person.
I'm way ahead of myself.
And
way ahead of
then
myself.
from that point on, that's where religious came into fucking contact. And then you had oil And then from that point, 9/11, because of the jihads or terrorists or whatever you want to fucking call them.
Yeah, but let's be honest here. All the terrorists have been around since, what, the early 70s?
Terrorists have
They've
been
been around
around
forever.
Exactly.
No, but what I'm saying is, remember when they bombed the boat? They took the Berlin. What was it? The Berlin, where they stormed the Berlin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been around since the early 70s. I mean, from what I remember.
The biggest terrorist attack to me is when they attacked the ship in
The U.S. Cole.
the USS Cole. Yes, killed 182 Marines, I believe it was.
Okay, but
And then they attacked the barracks later in Libya. Was it Libya? Somewhere over there. The fact escaped me because I'm old.
But my point is, I mean, do I think that every child or every high school graduate, like Israel, go to a 2-year military thing?
Yep.
So does Sweden.
In Sweden, I think they should, because just like what you said, discipline gives them self-confidence
and direction in life.
Well, that also goes. Sorry to cut both of you off, but that goes back to what we were talking about with people, especially my age, demanding the respect. At that point, if you have went through the 2 years of the military, got your military training and everything like that, you realize at that point you don't demand respect. You earn your respect.
Absolutely.
And the whole world will be a different place at that point in time. Now, this is all hypothetical because this will probably never happen because we're America and it's always freedom, 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 do what you want to do, everything like that.
It wasn't the 60s. You go to school or you get drafted.
But
Fact
okay,
of life.
but going back to
Okay,
all right,
we go back.
the Desert Storm with Bush Senior.
Desert
And then-
Shield with Senior.
Well, it's
Desert
also
Storm with Junior.
Desert Shield, okay.
There you go.
And what was Desert Shield really about to you?
To me, it was to help. It was to help the civil war that was going on in the countries.
Yeah, but if you remember back, go back and look.
I wasn't born then.
Okay, so you don't know. You ought to remember, but I guess you're getting Alzheimer's or something over here, or
When did
you're
that
short of the
happen?
memory. In the 90s, 90 and 91 is right after Reagan got out of office because he was just 8 years.
No,
Bush Senior got
Twin Towers was. That's right. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I was drunk during the 90s.
You're still drunk to the 2000s.
But the point being is, Desert Shield
There
in
you
the
go.
90s. And remember Bush Senior went over there because he said that the Iraqis were bombarding the Kurds, or not the Kurds, was it the Kurds?
It was the Kurds.
Right.
They had assassinated
Kuwait.
like 3,000 or 4,000 up in the mountain somewhere.
Kuwait.
Okay.
It's in Kuwait. Excuse
Yes.
me. That's the Kurds were in Kuwait, if I remember correctly. Remember
That's where we lost the attack was in Kuwait.
All right. And that war lasted what? 3 days? Wasn't it 3 days?
It was longer than that, I think. I don't really remember.
And then we all pulled back out.
But see what I'm saying with the Civil War,
they've
America
been having
was
civil war,
No,
but
no. So
There's civil
like,
wars in every other country.
That's what I'm saying. But because we were benefiting from the oil, that's why America stepped in.
I cannot dispute
But
that.
you
Matt.
remember?
I dispute that.
So that's what you learned in high school, right?
No,
I mean, honestly-
that's what I've learned from being in the military. That's what I've looked at. That's what I've researched
Okay,
by
through
myself.
in the history.
Exactly.
All right. So okay. So that was let's just be for real here. Okay. 2001, the Twin Towers got attacked. And let's see, George W. Bush, he sent all of our people to Afghanistan at first, remember?
Yep.
Going chasing the people in the mountains and all that. And then how did we ever get into Iraq?
Because
through sheer power, we just overran the Iraqis.
so what I want to say is how we went to so if you remember correctly, throughout that whole war we went through Iraq, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia. We went through 3 different countries.
Yeah, but Saudi Arabia just let us in because we're using air bases and stuff like that.
We went through 3 different countries with it, and all 3 of them had terrorists. So we went to Afghanistan first, And then we went to Iraq because the terrorists were going to Iraq to get a eastern border on it or a western border. I don't know which side it borders. But now, recently, I've had buddies going to Syria for the same war.
Well,
that operation is called Operation Inherent Resolve for going into Syria.
Okay, now what's the effect going to be of pulling all of our troops out of Afghanistan? Are we going to still have troops in Syria or no troops in the Middle East?
Well, technically, we do not have troops in Syria. Technically, they're on a boat off the coast of Syria.
Okay. In Afghanistan, we'll pull all the troops out of Afghanistan, I think, in a couple of weeks or in a month or two.
They've been claiming that for the past 6 years.
I agree, but now they've
I don't think that's going to happen. I will be lucky in my next 20 years to see troops leave Afghanistan and Iraq in the next 20 years.
Okay, well, wasn't it Obama who announced that he was pulling all the troops out of Iraq?
And there's still troops there.
What happened? Here they come.
And then what about the escalation of war with Iran?
Iran needs to be annihilated. Iran needs to be annihilated. They have murdered so many people. And now I think they're aligned with the Soviets.
The Chinese.
So Iran is allied with the Armenians, which we are allied with the Armenians as well. I was looking that up earlier. So the biggest issue going on right now is that Russia is doing active live fires in the Black Sea while we are sending ships out into the Black Sea.
Let's.
I kind of want to backtrack a little bit because we went way further than what we needed to.
No, I understand.
That's the way we are.
But okay, here's the thing. Now, do you think that with the Democratic Congress, Democratic Senate, and a president?
Yep.
Do
you think that they're trying to push us into a war with Russia? Honestly,
I don't think they're trying to push us into a war, but it may come to the situation where we have no choice because we're going to be taken advantage of by not only the Chinese and the Russians, but Iran.
So
North Korea. I mean, they're all coming after us now.
What I was reading earlier, and I will part this into my decision on your question, is that Biden and Putin agreed to meet
right
in the upcoming months. I don't feel we're pushing towards a war. I feel a war is inevitable, and a war will happen. Whether it be a Cold War like it was from, 70 through the 90s?
Yes.
Was the Cold War. I feel it's going to be another Cold War, a stagnant war. We'll develop a new aircraft, new bombs, and everything like that. Russia will do the same, and then it will change on... It's definitely going to be a difference from what we saw in the original Cold War.
You think it'll be more of a cyber war?
I feel it will be. I feel it'll be a satellite attacking, a server attack, or anything like that, especially with Wall Street. I feel like Wall Street will go down multiple times. It'll be one of those things to where we see it and we don't realize it at first. We'll blame China. We'll blame somebody else. And then we'll finally realize it. I feel Russia is going to take a huge advantage of the Democrats because if you look at history, Democrats don't push for military presence. It's more Republicans who push for military presence, funding of the military and everything like that to make our military stronger and make America what it is. And that's how I look at it as today.
Okay, let's go back.
I'll go back to what Matt's talking about. The Democrats are known to tax and spend. Republicans are known to go to war. It helps the economy. So, what do you do? I don't know.
Don't you huff and puff over there, Bo. We're talking. What's
no,
up?
I understand that, and I'm not saying nothing. I'm just sitting there. I'm thinking about everything that y'all are talking about, and
Well, I mean, so look at the history. Have the Democrats not defunded the military?
no, they haven't.
What?
Not at all.
Well, during the
Not at all.
Obama, well,
Okay.
during the Obama days,
Clinton?
Oh, no, Clinton did it. Obama did it.
Obama. Okay, so hold on. We're talking about Clinton in the 90s. He cut the military in half and
Yes.
gave. I wish I could have my stepdad on right now. He got paid money to get out of the military after
I do
10
remember
years.
that. I do remember.
Okay,
that. I
and
do
then
remember that.
Obama. Did Obama not cut down the military, not cut down the spending?
About 50% he cut the military. Obama
And,
did.
and what did Trump do?
built-
On
he
one of
built
our
the military.
first episodes, I think it was Veterans Talk VA, where I talked about how Trump gave us our first 3% raise in a very long time.
Yes, he did. Very long time. And he also built the military back up. I don't understand why they want to tear it down, because the world right now is in a very perilous situation. With North Korea, Iran, China, and Russia.
But okay,
I'll tell you this. Hold on 1 second. Just one quick second. We are at a stalemate with every country that is not the United States at this point in time. It is a stalemate and a hair trigger. If anybody messes up, all hell breaks loose.
Okay. But here's my point here. It seems like this is all senseless from stupid politicians that made bad decisions in the first place, all for money and power. And let's just go back and look at Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, and now Biden. And I think, I'm going to be honest, I think Trump was a good president.
Clinton sucked. Right from the core, he sucked.
Who are you talking about?
Clinton. He was not a good president.
I never said, you know what?
Talking about Trump.
Quit drinking a beer and listen to me. Jesus age.
Okay.
What I said is, shut up and listen, please. I said Bush Sr. I said Clinton. I said Bush Jr. I said Obama. They were horrible presidents. We're the reason. This is the reason why the world is going crazy as it is. Our politicians have sold us out for money and power. For the last 25, 30 years, our country's been doing a downward spiral in the first place.
Do not argue that. And it's both sides. It's not only Democrats,
but-
it's Republicans.
But that's my point right there.
That's why we need term limits. Get the hell out of there.
But that's my point. My point is that we have horrible politicians, and it's like further back when Corey was here, or another guy that was doing a podcast with us. He said we're not looking at the candidate itself. We're looking at sides. Now going back, let's go back and talk about the military now. When you're in the military, it was totally different from when Matt was in the military. A lot of the same concepts, but it's changed, right?
Well, I'm not there now, so I can tell you, but from talking to Matt, yes, training is different in a lot of ways, and things change in 40 years. So, whether it's good or not, I don't think so. But it has changed. You got to live with it.
Okay. See, but going back again, like I said, since Bush Sr. was in office, he was a horrible president.
I don't think so.
Clinton was a horrible president.
What was wrong with
Bush
Sr.?
Jr., huh?
What was wrong with Bush Sr.?
He got us into a war. He should have never gotten us into Iraq. So what? They had a civil war going on over there. We just went over there and messed up even worse because
I just want to cut in real quick. Diplomacy.
Isn't that what John Kerry's doing right now in Iran? Selling us off for more money.
Selling
and
us out right now. That's what he's
okay,
doing.
but that's what, like I said, in the last 25 to 30 years, we've had horrible politicians that have sold our country down the drain all for money and power.
Oh, exactly. I mean, you look at it. You look at America in the
And that's
40s
both
and 50s.
sides. In both sides.
If you look at America in the 40s and 50s to where we're at now, the Americans in the 40s and 50s would be ashamed of what America has become.
because
But I also want to say, without the military that we have today, you would have tanks rolling down Del Prado. You would have tanks rolling down Cape Coral Park.
Absolutely. No, and I understand that. And
so it's one of those things you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
But hold on, and I understand that. And see, all I'm saying is, since World War I and World War II, we've had senseless wars. All of it
since World War I and World War II, we have had senseless wars.
Okay, and that's all I'm trying to say.
And I get that.
And that's been in the 50s or 60s when the Korean War, the 70s when the Vietnam War, or am I wrong? Or
60s and 70s, yeah.
Okay, 60s and 70s.
But what I also want to say is that so we've had our, our wars that we needed to fight. And then we've had our senseless wars. But with the senseless wars, we have developed a new technology. We have learned different warfare tactics.
But here's my point.
It's made us to what the military is today. America has the number one military force in the world. And if you reckon with the number one military force in the world, what is going to happen?
It depends. Biden may not do nothing. We don't know. We know what Trump would have done.
Yeah, but, Dad, you can't.
No, I'm not talking about president.
I'm sorry.
I'm just talking about right now America stands as the number one military presence in the world. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
please.
No, you're right. But we've got people snipping at our heels, China and Russia. China.
Go ahead, Bo. I see the anger in your face.
I got no anger. What I'm saying is we got to start voting better people in, so we don't.
We got to start doing a lot of shit different.
Well, but going back, and Dad and I were talking when you're going to the bathroom,
tinkling.
The military has changed since his days to your days.
Oh, yeah.
That's obvious.
Well, I mean, hold on. I still do my rifle qualifications with an M16.
Oh, that's fine. And see, and that's okay. It's just like in anything else in life. Everything changes for everybody. You're a toddler. You go to about 10 years old, then or 6 or 7 years old. You start remembering things. You're growing.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like to me, I mean, going back to even before World War I, we had a civil war. It just seems like to me that we're sitting there and we're following the same path of destruction that the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire. You know what I mean? It's like we're following. We're heading down that same road. In history has been repeated how many different times?
Now I want to ask you this real quick before we go off on that tangent. So you pull up the toddler aspect to where you need to grow and everything like that. How old is America?
1776 is our independence when we fought for it, right?
Yep.
And before that, I think it was 1645 when Christopher Columbus, or 16.
How old is America as a country?
1776.
How many years is that?
255, 256 years.
244.
244.
All right. Now, how old is England?
God, it's been around forever.
It's been around since the 10th century, hasn't it?
It became a unified state in the 10th century. So would you say that America is learning its growing pains right now?
I'm going to be honest.
We're a toddler at this point?
No, I'm going to be honest with you. I think we're making stupid mistakes that we shouldn't be making.
So you wouldn't classify that as growing pains?
No, I would not call that as growing pains.
We have made more progress in 244 years than the rest of the world has made in centuries, okay?
Okay, but look, I'm an American, you're American, we're all Americans here. I just look at the mistakes that we've made.
Okay, hold on.
See, but
what about the mistakes that we haven't made?
Well, okay.
A king and queen.
Or dictatorship or anything like that.
Communism or anything like that. The mistakes that we haven't made. You're looking at the negatives. Look at the positives.
Okay, and there's a lot of positives out there.
Absolutely. This country's done more for the world than any other country has ever done.
All I'm saying is we need to look back at where all this began.
When did it
I mean,
begin?
hold,
What are you talking
stop.
about? When did it begin?
Hey, Dad, shut up for a second and please listen to me. I mean, just suck your beer for a few minutes. Just the early 90s in 89 when Bush Sr. got into office.
88.
Or 88, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I thought it was 89 because, no, it was 89 because that's when Reagan left office and Bush won in 88. 89 is when they, in January 20th of 89, is when Bush took office.
He was elected in 88.
There you go. Oh, my God. It's like talking to a... But the point is, Bush Sr. started something that this world, the world has gone spiraling to me since Bush Sr. was in office. Bush Sr. was a horrible president. So was Clinton. So was Bush Jr. And so was Obama. Trump was good, except he pissed a lot of people off with all his rhetoric. Okay, so what? Now Biden, Biden's been in for what, 90 days almost?
Almost 100.
Almost 100. He hasn't, to me, and I'm just going to say this outright, he hasn't really screwed up that bad. But hold on, just hear me out.
I just want to point out the flag that's sitting behind us right now.
I understand that. And it says Joe Biden. Okay, we have that sign. Our friend gave it to us.
And we fly it proudly.
Okay. But my point is, we're ran by Democratic people, and a majority of them are socialists, or they have sold out to the Socialist Party for money.
They call it progressive nowadays.
It's a socialist. Let's just be for
I
real.
agree with you 100%.
Okay. So with the military right now, and I've read a couple of things about, the military was talking about a coup against Obama. That, you read certain things on Facebook. You cannot believe everything you read on Facebook. I just want to say that right now. I think there's a lot of misinformation going from all sides. That's what gins the people up. I guess my point is we need to be like the military, all of us, and start standing up and saying no more to the politicians. Because we have politicians they're destroying this country. They have been destroying them for the last 30 years, like I said.
More than the past 30 years.
But to me, this is where
more recent.
But my point is, I'm saying in the last 30 years that I can remember, our country has done a downward spiral. And that's been since Bush Sr. was in office, Clinton was in office, Bush Jr. was in office, and Obama was in office.
What have I said the past 3 episodes? Society itself is in a downward spiral.
It is in a downward spiral, and it's sad to see. It's sad to see.
We talked about before. But what are we going to solve it? How are you going to solve this problem?
When people start uniting and standing up and helping each other out and letting the politicians know, you don't run us, you don't control us, we control you.
And you know where that starts?
It starts in the home.
AmericanCivilDebate.com.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely
where it starts.
Bingo. It's people coming out and talking to each other and not... You got to come in with the open mind. I mean, it's easy to be a hardcore Republican or it's easy to be a hardcore liberal. But people, we got to start waking up because we are falling. And pretty soon, once we fall, we're not going to be able to get up because we're going to have, like Matt said, we're going to have tanks riding down our street.
Somebody has flushed the toilet, and we're just spinning in the bowl right now. That's what we're doing at this point.
So people, please get out there, honor your veterans. Veterans deserve to be honored. And, I mean, I know this is what the show is about, but we went off on a tangent about certain things. But honor your veterans. Your veterans, a lot of them gave up their lives for our freedoms here, and our freedoms, people don't hold that. They don't hold that
near and dear to the heart of what it should be.
Right.
You sit there and you look at it. You see somebody served. It's one of those things to where your father and I were talking about. You signed an unpaid check, unpayable to and up to the amount of your life to save your country, to become what your country is to this day. And that is what is allowing everybody to have their freedom of speech. The gun rights, whether or not that's a controversial subject, we'll cover another day. But still, it's everyone is fighting for your right to be able to do what you are doing, to this day.
Well, let's say this, man. Everyone that has gone to the service, I think, is trying to uphold the values of the Constitution that our forefathers wrote 240-something years ago. And that's what they're fighting for. And do not let greedy politicians take it away from you.
So what's your final thought, Dad?
My final thought would be this. You got to, you see a veteran in the street, you shake his hand. Tell him you love him. And thank him for what he did.
Matt, your final thought.
My biggest thing is just have a conversation with a veteran. Don't just say thank you and walk away. Have a decent conversation with somebody to where that they can enjoy it, you can enjoy it. That's how I feel about it.
You know, I wasn't prepared to do this podcast tonight, and I'm glad that you had made me do it, because I think it's a really touchy conversation. I think a lot of people from either side, they don't, some respect, some other doesn't respect. It's like the Vietnam War. All these people that came back, they were called child murderers and everything else. But you know what? Our government made those people do what they did. Because when you're in the military...
Not the government necessarily. It was a patriotic act on their part.
But again, we'll talk about this another time. But my final thought is this. Be a human being. That's all we are. If you don't believe in God, hey, that's fine. But there's a God up there, and he's looking down on us right now going, wow.
What the fuck are you doing? Excuse my language.
But we're treating each other like garbage. All of us, everybody treats everybody like garbage. We can't do that. We cannot last as a society when we're doing that. People, we need to start waking up and helping each other out and treating each other as human beings. Because every human being has a right to live, no matter what.
Absolutely. And one of the 10 Commandments is, love your neighbor.
Love thy neighbor as you would love yourself.
That's right.
Please come to AmericanCivilDebate.com for talks like this and post freely, because I think people need to start bridging the gaps where we're not trying to bridge the gap. And that's politics, religion, that's on everything. We should be able to talk freely to each other without having a fist fight, go get a gun and shoot each other, and doing stupid things. Join us at AmericanCivilDebate.com, where there's no censorship, no selling off your information, and we just want you to have a good time. We want you to enjoy the internet again. At www.americancivilDebate.com. All you need is an email address to join. Everybody have a great night. Thank you.